Welcome to Big Blend Radio's Parks and Travel podcast, covering parks, public lands, and historic landmarks across America and around the world. Hey everyone, this is Lisa and Nancy with Big Blend Radio, and we're sitting with Jim and Gayle Sleznick in San Juan Bautista, which is on the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. It's a beautiful stop, a beautiful historic village. In fact, it is a village of history and definitely a destination to come out, especially if you're going to Pinnacles National Park up in Central California. But it's time to talk about people in parks and rangers, superintendents, and people who were born in parks or come from a family of park rangers. So let's start with you, Gayle. Gayle, you were almost born in Death Valley, right?
Well, it was the location where my parents lived. Mm-hmm. So basically that was my first home in 1939. And the park itself had just been formed. It was a national monument at the time. And there were 5 permanent rangers. Dad was an accountant.
Okay.
So he was in the office taking care of. And the CCCs had been brought in to build the roads and trails, and that was the staff at that time. And in the summer, we went up to Wild Rose Canyon, which is about a 3,000-foot level. Consider there wasn't air conditioning at that time. And I was born in June, so that was my first home.
Oh, my gosh.
And Mother went out to Riverside to have me, but back in Death Valley for...
So can you handle the desert really well?
I do love the desert, and we have had a chance to live in the desert with our career. And there's something very clean, special, quiet. You get used to the heat, mm-hmm. but the mornings and the evenings are just
spectacular.
Lovely, yeah.
And the stars. And everyone, Gayle is an artist. You do beautiful work.
Oh, thank you.
And you'll see her work out here in San Juan Bautista. I know you've got a show currently
yes.
in Salinas on Yosemite National Park.
That's correct, yeah.
Which is interesting because your dad was born on the centennial date.
Birthday.
The birthday of the
National Park. August 25th.
Yeah.
And I had painted, I've painted most of the parks, but I had gone back to Yosemite after we left, after we'd lived there, and painted for 35 years. So I did have a corral of paintings of Yosemite. So those are in honor of all the national parks for their 100th celebration.
It's exciting. And Jim, let's talk about you, because I know you've been a superintendent. You've done a number of roles in national parks. What was your very first national park experience? I know she beat you to it. I mean, being a baby in a park.
As a teenager, the family visited national parks, mm-hmm. Yellowstone, things like that. I decided that I needed a summer job, so I applied for and received a summer job at Crater Lake National Park. It was a great experience for a young man coming out of Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in 1958, I went as a summer ranger to Crater Lake, came back in 1959 as a summer ranger, and finally got through all the university stuff and everything. And in 1960, I took a summer job at Grand Canyon.
Wow.
And while at Grand Canyon, all my applications for a permanent job with the National Park Service came through. I got a telephone call from Lake Mead National Recreation Area, and they offered me a full-time permanent job. I said goodbye to Grand Canyon and took lodging space at Lake Mead, and it was kind of grim. I was, a rookie GS5 ranger, and they had me at a place called Temple Bar. It was away from the world, and hot. But all I had was my Stetson hat and a pair of blue jeans for uniform. But you get used
in
to
what? And your quarters
were a trailer.
You were in a trailer. Now, did you have had the hat, the Park Service hat with the sequoia cone on, the little tiny sequoia cone?
Smokey the Bear hat.
Oh, the Smokey the Bear hat.
yeah, Stetson hats. And later they came up with straw hats, which are okay if you're in an environment that you need a cool head. But Lake Mead was kind of different because I was expecting something a little more dramatic. but it was a great learning place. I spent 3.5 years, I think it was around 3.5 years at Lake Mead. We got married at Lake Mead.
But we met at Crater Lake. See, he didn't know why you kept coming back.
Okay, wait. Now, Okay, so you're at Lake Mead, which is now one of the top visited national parks.
It's a great area.
It's really
great
something.
area. But when we were there, it was, it just was kind of an orphan. A national recreation area was not a national park. But it has really, the government has put in a lot of effort. You have good employees. It's a great experience, and then of course the water goes up and down.
Yeah.
So it's quite an experience to do your patrols and everything when the water's up and then there's water's down.
So it's let's talk about how you both met, because I remember this story the last time we met you when we drove up on the Anza Trail behind your house that you're a big, you guys made that happen.
Yeah.
I remember getting out of the car and standing in a cow patty on that trip.
That's right.
And everybody was like, well, welcome to San Benito County.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to stand on a tree stump and it was a cow patty.
Right.
But how
Just
did...
walks right in it.
it was all good. That's why, especially wearing sandals, it's always best. Gail, how did you meet Jim?
I was working the visitor center as a telephone operator and information receptionist, and the first year. And in '57, the what is it? The family. So no longer the children. If your parents
There's a
working,
question of nepotism.
Nepotism, that's right. The nepotism law came in. Something happened in Washington, D.C. So if you were a son or daughter of a National Park Service employee, you couldn't work in the park.
Oh.
So I had to go work up at the lodge. Well, that's the year. First year, Jim came in. I was working behind the gift shop, curio in the lodge.
She was the attractive summer employee at the gift shop, and I was the young ranger
In the Stetson
There
hat.
it is. In a uniform.
We had a cooperation between the lodge and the Park Service that they wanted the employees that worked at the lodge put the slides through. That's what they had to be done manually at that time. So the girls behind the curio counter would put the slides through as the ranger naturalist would give the talk.
Oh, so for the park ranger program.
And so I'm pushing them through, and he would say, "Oh, thank you very much," and leave. And I thought, well, he must have a girl at home or somewhere, because
there's no winking.
He'd
There's no
just go out, So okay, fine. About the end of the summer, finally he stopped and took a look. I guess that's
Put the lights on.
So finally, he wanted a drink of cold water.
No, so then that turned into hiking him up and down all the. I mean, it's a beautiful hiking park, and you go up every lava mountain in the around the area. So, so he was from the city, and I was. My dad was the assistant superintendent at that time.
Oh, so your dad was his boss.
Oh, that's right.
Well, kind of.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't want to get in his way.
Yes, and that's also why I was sort of like.
Well, maybe that's why it took a while. Go mess around with the boss's daughter.
So dates were hikes. Instead of going out to dinner, you guys went.
Well, there was no place to go out to dinner. The biggest outing was always to go to Ashland to the Shakespearean Festival, and you had to get a lot of permission. I was living at the under the umbrella, excuse me, not at home, but under the umbrella of the dormitories where the lodge concessionaire kids lived. So I had to get all this permission to go out with Jim to go to see the Shakespearean play, because it was a long distance drive from Crater Lake to Ashland. And so you got home at 2 or 3 in the morning, and you better be in that dorm at 2 in the morning.
Yeah.
You see, now that's when you just sneak out.
Well, you could not. It was just
the way it was.
It was the way it was back then.
So then you both got married.
We got married
55 years ago.
Yeah, well, congratulations. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's the secret to being married for 55 years?
Yeah, right. Up and you say, "Oh my gosh, you're still
You're still here."
Well, when you're working in pretty park areas, it becomes a very comfortable place to be married.
You don't. I think, of our time, divorce was not in the mix. I mean, it was just not there. And as you say, we were in small areas. We had to rely on each other and the small community where you were in. There was just, it was survival, in a lot of the parks. The interesting thing, Jim said, Lake Mead was his first position. My dad's second position from Death Valley was to Lake Mead National Recreation Area, and that's when the Boulder Dam had just been built and the recreation area was formed behind the dam. And so that was where we moved. Of course, soon after that the war hit and we went, he went into the Navy, but we went back into the Park Service at Lake Mead. So I had been there before and then went back after I got out of college, and I was a lifeguard for the summer. And
a lifeguard at Lake Mead?
Lake Mead, yeah.
So you got to go up in those little towers and see if anyone was going to drown?
I sat out there in the heat. So I loved the heat.
Did you ever have to rescue someone?
We did. We had long paddle boats that we could get on. There were a lot of children. There were a lot of, just families, and not the rescues were pretty much like just grab. You're tiring. I can see. Just hang on to the board for a while and get you in. There wasn't
nothing traumatic.
Any major
like the ocean is a little different.
No, it's a very quiet, beautiful water.
So when you're a lifeguard there, are you under the Park Service?
I had a patch on my black suit. I had a big arrowhead.
Maybe because you lived in very serene nature areas, that's why you could stay married so long.
Well, it is. Yeah, it really is. There's
less stress.
You're together. Our friend, we jokingly say, after we left. One of our areas was the Gila Cliff Dwellings, and we were
in New Mexico.
Nice. And we did not have
you're on the boonies, man.
And so every night was a candlelight dinner.
Nice.
Well,
we know about those.
So that, and to this day, we still have candlelight dinners.
We're sitting amongst candles right now. So candlelight.
It's just
we had GSA candles.
There it is.
They run for 8 hours with GSA candle.
Oh wow!
Exactly 8 hours.
So the Gila Cliff Dwellings. that was one of the first monuments. I think was declared in 1903 or 1907.
Wilderness area.
1913,
something like that.
It was one of
the United States' first wilderness area.
Yeah, the first wilderness area.
The Gila Cliff Dwellings, under the Forest Service. Yeah.
Right.
And then this little pocket of
the interesting
dwellings.
Story about that assignment was that I got a telephone call while I was in Lake Mead in Boulder City.
We were at a big one.
And if I was interested in a job at Gila Cliff Dwellings. And I said,
we're in a telephone booth.
Where is Gila Cliff Dwellings?
This is without internet and all that, right?
No, we're in a telephone booth, and he's talking.
So Tom, the guy I'm talking to in Santa Fe, he says, well, it's in Silver City, New Mexico.
Right.
I was too embarrassed to say, where is Silver City, New Mexico? I'm a water ranger at Lake Mead. So I said, let me talk to Gayle and let you know. So I went back through to headquarters, and all they could find was a mimeograph sheet of paper on what
the
Gila Cliff Dwellings was all about. So I came down to Willow Beach, home, and said, Gayle, we've been offered a job at Gila Cliff Dwellings. They want a married couple, no kids,
no children,
because of school problems.
14 river crossings to the monument.
Yeah,
it was way 50 miles from town.
Yeah.
And,
on dirt roads.
On dirt roads, right.
Now you've got a
kind of.
Well, anyway, that was the way we kind of kept going. It was just a great time at the Cliff Dwellings, and we met interesting people. I finally got a ranger to help me. I finally got a maintenance man to help me.
Wow!
And then they transferred me to the Virgin Islands.
Wow. Okay. So you go. Okay. So Lake Mead. So you're in the lake. That's a recreation area. Then you go to Gila Cliff Dwellings.
Right. And then the superintendent in the Virgin Islands called me up and said, "I need a ranger who knows about boating, Lake Mead, and paperwork at the cliff dwellings."
He was the only one there.
Doing all the paperwork myself, and maybe a little help from Gayle every once in a while. But they offered me the job, and
off you go.
I drove 50 miles back to Gayle and said, "The job offer," And
we
said, we had crank phones that didn't work.
Well, they worked as a crank phone, but we tried to put a new system in. That's a whole story of its own.
And so we got the job. Everybody said goodbye. We went to Silver City, and then worked our way on dirt roads to the Mogollon Range.
Oh yeah,
it's beautiful.
And we still didn't know where we were because Region had said, "Well, just look for Doc Campbell. He's the rancher down there." So
I've heard that name.
We're sitting on top of the ridge, and here comes a cowboy on a horseback, And I said, "Hey," and we were in a car,
pulling
a trailer,
a little U-Haul.
But and the Gila River's right down below.
Oh, I know where you
roaring.
are. Yes.
Yeah.
So anyway, the cowboy says, "Well, Doc Campbell's way down there." So, thank you. He rode off, and we took the 4-wheel drive and bounced down to the Gila.
Well, we just stopped at the river.
Fortunately, there was a construction truck in the area. And I said, "I'm looking for Doc Campbell. Where is he?" And he says, the driver says, "We'll take you there." Well, so we left the car on this side of the river
because it was flooding.
Oh,
so he had a big truck to get us to the 7 river crossings to Doc's house, and then there were 7 more up to the monument from Doc Campbell's ranch.
So then the ranch boy, the young boy at the ranch there, Doc's son, brought the International Harvester big truck, 4-wheel drive. The corn binder is what we called it, and we unloaded our cardboard encased stuff, and moved into a trailer.
But the trailers had been
in
placed there, but they weren't set, and we had to dig the septic
tank.
So we stayed at Doc, had a little cabin, and so that's when we got acquainted with Campbell.
I think he's related to Bodie Weber, Chef Bodie and Diana. I could be wrong. I remember something about that.
Well, Doc Campbell came from the East Coast, and Silver City was a big place for tuberculosis, and he had asthma or something, so the weather was perfect for him. His wife was Campbell. There was a Campbell Lyons Cattle Company, and that owned that property, and of course they get married Campbell, but it was totally different Campbell family. So they lived out there as a wilderness family, and there were 4 children between Doc and Ida, and those kids do run the ranch today.
Okay, then I know the name Ida Campbell too. And what we've done, we've been to Silver City a number of times, and the Gila Cliff Dwellings we've been to twice. And actually, an artist, Victoria Chick, is on our show just about every month talking about what's going on. It's a huge art town now.
Yes, it has developed into a fabulous,
beautiful. And so now that we're back home in Tucson, we'll be hanging out there a little bit more. But it's beautiful, that wilderness area. Now it's the Trail of Mountain Spirits, that road, and it goes all the way around through, when you go from Silver City, and you go through the Mogollons, and you go to Gila Cliff Dwellings, then you go around, and through the Mimbres, and you come back, and it's this beautiful trail that you can go through.
Not by Lake Powell?
Not Lake, no, Lake Powell is by, that's up in the Grand Canyon.
Well, not Lake Powell.
Fort Bayard, there's a lake out there.
Lake
Roberts, yes. That's a beautiful.
The nice thing, Jim was involved with the park, and we were so far out, having children was not in the mix at that time. So I started working with the kids, and Doc Campbell had been the 180-day appointee for the Park Service, and the only people that came out there came by the Chamber of Commerce 4-wheel drive caravan. And that's about the way the people came to
Wow.
see the park. And they...
When was this?
We went there, what,
We were there in June
63, 64?
60. When was Olga married?
Man,
Was
things
that-
have
63,
changed.
64.
Yeah.
Now they have electric cars out there, the Rangers.
That's right. Well,
All night.
well, they have bridges to go over also. But anyway,
It's the first time we've ever seen an electric car being used by a ranger.
Yes.
Was at the Gila
It was
Cliff
Gila
dwellings. This is
Cliff.
hysterical.
Yeah.
Well, there was.
cool.
So anyway, Doc would pack hunters in the winter and Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts and families in the summer, and with the onslaught of them putting in a new road, they were, at least from part of it was paved from the Sapio to his ranch. He said, I can't handle the people that will be coming in for the park. So that's how we suddenly were designated to go to Gila. So with Jim up at the park, I started working with the kids and packing mules. And so there were sometimes...
From artist to
I wasn't
mule
an artist.
packer. No, okay, wait. So let's talk about from moving slides to being a lifeguard, yes, to a mule packer.
But they had about 97 pack, between mules and horses.
Wow.
And those went up. They put them up. So I have been all over that wilderness area. We'd have to bring the horses in, and then we had the hunters, and we packed them, and the kids were pretty much running the hunting camps during the winter, but Ida was teaching them. They were off to school and then into college, and so who was being able to home at the time is, I'd help Ida or Isabel or back into the wilderness.
Your story about the electric cart reminded me of something at the cliff dwellings, and that was we had the rivers.
Yeah, that's
right.
You're right.
Okay,
That's good.
so I'd drive to the park across the water, winter and summer. In the winter time, I'd drive up to the park headquarters, park the car, do my chores. Time to go home. The truck was frozen to the ground.
Oh, no way.
I had driven through the water.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so what to do? The car wouldn't go. It's frozen.
couldn't break them.
We had a propane tank
Acetylene
wow.
tank,
and
Oh, my goodness.
heated the brake drums. With
That's scary. I would think it would explode.
No, it was okay because it's just a little bit. And drive back. Now, you drove back, the brakes, everything got wet. You went home. The next day, you got it. It's frozen to the ground. The truck's frozen.
Oh my god.
However,
So, yeah, but we were on a hot spring, so we turn on the hot spring hose
all the water was hot.
and soak the tires, all
my gosh.
the wheels.
Oh, that's right. All the hot springs out
Well,
there.
our
Yeah.
commodity was cold water. We had a hot water tank in the irrigation ditch outside of our trailer. And that was our our cold water supply. You kept the hot water. You had kept a drip of water going at all times.
Right.
And I said, I've never lived any place that I had so much water. I had to keep it running at all times.
That's
to
crazy.
keep it hot.
Yes.
And so that was it. He'd just go out and he'd have hot water right at the hose. And in summer, when you have a garden, we had to put it up on a stand so it cooled. You couldn't irrigate down
You'd spray the pool. Spray with the hose to cool.
And if you had company,
Wow.
the first person had a very nice, comfortable bath. The second one, it got hotter. And the third one, it got hotter.
Yeah. Oh, you got to tell when Nancy worked. You remember Joy Adamson, Elsa the Lion, Born
Yes,
Free?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
So she worked for her in the bush in
really?
Kenya.
Loved it.
So tell her about bath time.
Oh, our shower. The shower was really fun because the first person who went in got warm water.
Oh, it got cold in the other.
But you had to kill the snakes
Oh,
because there was
geez.
always cobras under the wooden slats.
Yes,
It was a little canvas box, some wooden slats, and there was always a cobra under there.
Oh,
so
great.
I always got the cold shower because I
But explain how the cold shower works.
Yeah, well, this is how both of them worked. So you've got this canvas around you for privacy, right?
Right.
Okay. So going up the tree and dumping a bucket of water on your head was a little African dude that would climb up the tree. And so he's just looking down at you. That was your shower.
We didn't have enough water pressure for a shower. We had a wonderful new trailer. We were in a 25 by 7 in Lake Mead. Here we suddenly had a 40 by 10. We thought we were in heaven, but the shower wouldn't work because of pressure. So that's why you had to have a bath.
Yeah.
I mean, we're in hot springs water. We should have been like really great.
Wow.
I
also stayed in this place, the Cheetah's place in Mexico.
Uh-huh.
Now that was fun too because it was on the second floor. And I go into, and there's a little bathtub, and there's like a shower, but no water's coming out. So I go downstairs to the desk and say the shower doesn't work. Oh, you just have to lean out the window and yell. So you lean out the window, you yell, and they throw a hose up to you. You put it over the shower curtain. You yell, and they turn it on. Not the cold shower.
Man, we were in luxury with the hot.
The cliff dwellings were one of the.
They were good.
They were a real rare experience.
But that's where,
a single ranger married. You were 50 miles from town,
and more people came to visit us because they thought, "Oh, the poor couple, they're way out there in the middle of nowhere."
But you're enjoying it.
And here we have. We had 3 sets company at one time. I mean, they were sleeping out on the, all around the trailer. And,
oh wow!
I mean, it was it was wild. I mean, it was just. And fortunately, we had a very good garden in the summertime because it was 2 hours to town.
And then back over through the rivers. What I find interesting about your story is thinking about how they lived out in the cliff dwellings and how they farmed, and they farmed up on that mountain. They'd have to go down the mountain, up the mountain, get the water to water their crops, right? And then bring it back up.
Well, I tried raising a farm, river bottom, and I built a fence, and I got the corn seed and the squash and whatever they.
And we were
beans and squash.
It had been
the 3 sisters,
and the melons.
And I put the things, planted them, and I thought, boy, I'm going to have a little garden for interpretive purposes. And everything sprouted okay, and so did the plants. I mean, so did the animals come around.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
they ate everything.
And the ragweed. Oh, my God.
Oh, what's the Gila Cliff Dwelling? The beavers have now come back.
Oh, yes.
And I've been watching them on Facebook. They put the videos of them.
That's...
So that little bridge, you go from the little trailer visitor center, not the visitor center, the main one, but the one right when you start to go to the cliff dwellings. And right there, they're busy building their little dams and everything, and their flood,
so cool.
And that's really good for the river.
There was no bridge there, was there, Jim?
Did you play Tarzan across the river?
We crossed. No, we did have a little footbridge.
Yeah, it's a little footbridge.
But the cars were parked on the other side of the.
Yeah.
And you had a little footbridge.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And we had to. We hauled up, what were they, the 4x6s, and to make the first steps to go up into
the cliff dwelling?
Well, that's into the cliff dwelling. We're talking about
the entrance.
Just getting to the entrance.
Yeah.
But where you start doing the hike through. Let's talk.
Beautiful.
So you went from, back
from
Lake Mead to the Gila Cliff Dwelling. So 2 different, and then you go to the beach?
And then we go
to the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
But see, our daughter was born at the Gila.
Oh.
In a snowstorm. I mean, one of the heaviest. In fact, the ranger we had a little Willys Jeep and a big pickup, and he went ahead of us and plowed out enough snow so we could get up over Copper's Canyon, And then by the time we got down, we had to go the long way around because the snow was just crazy.
Miles.
And I was having labor pains, and unfortunately she didn't come for a long time, but...
she goes out to the hot spring and my water's broken.
It was just like, oh, geez. So, but we had a Forest Service friend. He was a wilderness backcountry ranger, and his wife was an Isleta Indian, and we just became so close. And we came and walked on their trailer and said, well, we're here because I think I'm going to have a baby, and we're snowed out. and we were snowed out for 5 days.
Oh, wow.
So I just stayed, and at that time they let you just stay in the hospital. Like I walk up and
nowadays you're in and out you go.
Yeah.
Go back to the snow. We don't care if you had a baby.
Out there. Yeah.
Wow. So
that was really fun.
So that's your first child there, and
so then I was pregnant with our son when we moved to the Virgin Islands.
see what this wilderness area does. See what happens when you have no TV.
St. Croix. We landed on St. Thomas, tired. We go to the hotel, and all of a sudden we hear this racket going on. What in the hell is going on? That was our introduction to a steel band.
Oh, no. Good morning, everybody.
Yeah. And at 10 o'clock, they turned off the water. And I said, thank goodness we did. I said, where's the water? They said,
and you're used to water now.
Said, but we're in a big hotel, It was a very nice hotel.
Oh, funny.
Now, this is strange. But then we realized how water was a huge commodity.
After being in the hot water,
Here I had water running all the time. And your water was a cistern. It was water that came off your roof into a cistern underneath your house. It was like a big swimming pool. And then you'd pump it back through a chlorinating system to drink. That was a change.
So that was another totally different experience. Tropical, the boat, and going out, a larger boat, obviously.
So now that's how your patrol is on a boat now.
Yeah.
So you got to. She can help you because she's a lifeguard.
But his office was in the fort.
The fort.
Christians fort.
Yeah.
Beautiful. The Park Service owned a lot of the buildings in St. Croix, but the insular government was in them, using them.
Oh, wow.
So we had steeple
buildings. We had the fort was okay, although we did have the Army
somebody in there.
The fellow got the who's he wants when you join the Army,
the recruiting office.
Was across the hall from me. He was out recruiting, and I was at the other side doing my government stuff. But anyway. It was a real neat experience because it was the first underwater. It was the first
underwater.
It was it became a national monument. Buck Island Reef.
Yeah, that's right.
Kennedy's.
Like
I think President Kennedy was the one at that time, and they designated all that coral and everything as a national
underwater.
Monument. Yeah. So my job there was a patrol boat out to the island, snorkel tube, go around, swim to all the interpretive
How much
things.
fun is that? Now, did you ever get scared of sharks or anything like that?
Barracuda. The Barracuda was the one.
They had, what's his name, Henry or something? And underwater, everything's 25% bigger. That's a hawk going around.
Yeah, I know.
He was superintendent. I mean, he was like the...
I was the area
manager in charge. And so he had rangers.
I had Buck Island Reef. I had the Danish historic thing.
Oh, that's
and
right.
Salt River.
Wow.
So it were 3 little segments all together, part of the...
What a cool job. You go snorkeling.
So everything's changing, right? So, I mean, every so how many years were you there?
We were there 2.5 years.
About 2.5 years.
And there, it was one of those things, okay, I'm not having to buck snow with Tony.
Yeah.
But the water did break at home. And so we called the doctor, and I was going, and the hospital medical thing was so odd. You never knew how to pronounce names. It was sort of a foot in the door for doctors because it was a territory. So there was a place that foreign doctors would come to get a foot into the door to get to the United States.
Oh, wow.
And but this doctor was a native from from the islands. Or no, he was Puerto Rican.
So Virginian.
Puerto Rican.
No, he was Puerto Rican. And you could not make an appointment. You just went to his house. And sometimes there were 20 cars around there. Sometimes there weren't any, maybe 1 or 2. And I was usually the only way. We were called Continentals. We were the white, And
the Continentals, la-di-da.
And they were the Cruisians
From
and
the
the
mainland.
Continentals.
Yeah.
And I would be the only white person in that group, many times. And I had a really good time talking with the ladies. And so Tony decided to come at night, and he had a clinic. There was a hospital in St. Croix and a clinic in Frederickstead. And I said, I think I'd rather come to the clinic. And fortunately, Tony was born okay, but the phones went out. Completely. So my folks were.
At least you didn't have a hurricane.
No, that's right. There was no. But there were lizards going up the walls,
Geckos.
and then geckos, and then we had like you say, in the house, it was all open. There were geckos behind the
they're cool.
The frames, and there was one I had ever seen the light because he was totally white.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
So,
there were. There's good and bad things everywhere you live.
Yeah, of course there are, and that's what makes the stories.
Yeah.
So the Virgin Islands. Where did you go next?
Washington, D.C.
Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I think there's somebody. Oh my gosh! I think there's somebody in the higher government that's going, hey, let's put him here and see what happens. Oh, no, let's put him over there.
I was sent to Washington under a departmental training assignment 2 years. And then they move you back out to a national park area somewhere. So that was during stop war in Vietnam.
Oh yeah, Rennie Davis was Rennie Davis. I guess they were knocking cars over and tried to stop, slashing bus tires and things.
Yeah, it was an unsettled time in Washington.
Lady Bird Johnson was doing the beautification of Washington D.C. The Kennedys. She had brought in Andrew Wyeth show to the White House.
No way.
Was able to get to see that show.
Oh, wow.
And that's when I clicked into, what? I really want to paint.
Yeah.
I saw that show and it blew me away. And so
that's when you started painting then?
Not until we got to Yosemite. I was in a city. What so actually, I did sign up. I met. There was an American Watercolor Society artist on St. Croix that was giving classes from 1 to 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the I wanted to take that class. Fortunately, our ranger had a mother that was visiting, and she said, all babies,
cool.
Tina and Tony were babies, at that time. And she says, I'll be more than happy, because it was a time they were both going down for naps at the same time. So that was my introduction.
Is that a good thing?
It was fabulous. Yeah. Tell me about it, yeah. It's the only time in your life, like, yay. But anyway, Bud Haas was American Watercolor Society artist and a fabulous introduction to watercolor. So indeed, I did want to sign up for another watercolor class when I got to Washington, D.C., but not enough people signed up. So I took guitar lessons.
Oh, hey, why not? Hey.
so it was good.
Just go back a moment. The question is, where were you when Kennedy was shot? Okay, I'm at the Gila Cliff Dwellings, all by myself at the ranger station, and I hear a horse coming up, a rider.
Right.
Knock on the door. Jim, the president's been shot.
Well, that's right.
And then he just turned around and got on the horse and rode off. And I said to myself, nobody's coming to the Cliff Dwellings today with the event that's going on in Washington right now. So I just locked the place up and got in the truck and went back to the house and said, and we had a battery-operated radio.
Well,
no electricity.
We didn't have electricity.
So we turned on the radio and we could hear what was going on.
Wow.
And everybody knows. I was with Ida Campbell. How we did our wash. She had 2 Ringer washers in a wash house, and they had an old Army surplus generator that burned a gallon of gas and a quart of oil an hour. So when that was popped off, you did everything. If I were washing clothes, she would do something vacuum or do something in her house at the same time, or both of us would.
No energy.
She would
loss.
iron and I would wash, or both of us would iron, and we'd stand outside and iron together in the summer, and just put the clothes up in the, up in the. And that's the time when we're ironing ranger shirts and they were cotton and putting in the military creases. And it was
starch. Did you have to use starch?
Oh yeah. Well, we used pant stretchers for the jeans and everything. But you did your whole wash in one day and hung up everything. And of course we had all the hot water we wanted, but we needed to have the
cold so it wouldn't run.
So that led. Finally, we got a ranger, and the funniest was they were going to get me a gas refrigerator, because I was having to walk from our trailer across to, it would be like way past this house here to Ida's, to the ranch house. They had 4 Cervels out in the, for their family, big family, and everything that went on there. And I had a space for refrigeration. Well, that was walking back and forth. And finally, the powers that be from Santa Fe came, Gayle, we're going to buy you a refrigerator. I said, fabulous. She said, start checking out the gas refrigerators. Well, Cervel had sold out to Norge, had sold out to Whirlpool.
So this kind of thing was going on way back then, too.
So finally we found a gas refrigerator. We had 2 trailers, and we said, okay, we need 2. One had turquoise fixtures, ours had white. Okay, and that time you couldn't change the hinge on a refrigerator door, so it has to be open this way. And finally, Jim gets a call and says, we've got your refrigerator. And Jim said, we're supposed to have 2. He says, you only have 1 here. And he says, what color is it? He says, it's white. Well, it was hinged on the wrong side. Plus, it was so huge, it wouldn't go through the trailer door. I said, great. So what do we do? We had a small porch built as we walked out the trailer, and all the constructions had those huge signs. So we had made a floor out of one, built the signs, put the big sign as a top, stuck the refrigerator in there.
Hey, why not?
And, the problem was, Jim said, check out the refrigerator. It had an electric thermostat. If you didn't have electricity, it froze solid inside. So Jim said, well, bring it out anyway. So we did, and they reworked it so you manually could turn on the gas and turn it off. So I would turn the gas on in the morning. It would run all day. At night when we go to bed, we turn it off.
So it didn't freeze.
And it worked great. I mean, if you wanted to defrost it, you just open up and the sun would go in and you pull all the lights off.
I love this.
But then when we went to El Paso or something, everything froze solid.
Mayonnaise, solid, tomatoes, rocks.
Oh my gosh! This is so important that people understand what rangers go through in life.
Right. Because it looks like you have your little neat offices.
Yeah, that's right.
You've got this nice neat uniform. It doesn't look like that.
Use a Coleman lantern
between my legs at the desk. Coleman lantern.
To keep
so you could type and do your papers.
Yeah.
Oh man!
So finally, our neighbor, she had a baby before I did, and they ordered up a washing machine. Well, at that time, Doc had finally gotten a generator, a big diesel generator for the property, and so we did have lights, and that's why they could have the washing machine. But there wasn't enough pressure to click the solenoid switch to make it go through its cycle. We had this radio, and we had a gentleman visit one time, and he had been a radio operator, and he said, make a big coil of copper wire and just stick it behind your radio. That'll bring in stations better, which we did. Well, when that washer would change, you could hear the click of the radio on the radio. Okay, so you would go fill the water with all your hot water, and then you would come in and you hear the click. Okay, it's through. You go and take the water out, let it go through the washer. Oh, it's back, and so you can hear the click, click, click. And you go and take the water.
Oh my gosh, this is hysterical.
We thought, but that was. But I didn't have to walk clear over the ice and get the generator started.
Oh my gosh,
it was just unreal.
But it is fun in a way. I mean, now.
but it wasn't even funny at the time. The people that were going to replace us, I told you, the gal, she said, well, how do you do your wash? I said, oh, I take the sheets down to the river and pound them with a rock. And she said, I've been in the Park Service this. I'm not going to take my sheets and
Oh man,
so be easier.
So when you, I want to go back on the. So you went to the cliff dwellings to the Virgin Islands to D.C. So what happened after D.C.?
Yosemite.
See, this is like just crazy.
But see, we had been to Yosemite right when we got married because Jim went through ranger training at Yosemite.
Oh,
it was
cool.
a 3-month
Nice.
schooling time. It was fabulous. I worked for Dr. Wessner, who was a dentist, as an assistant. My sister is a dental hygienist. She and her husband had gone through ranger training at Yosemite, and so she worked for Dr. Wessner. So suddenly I walk into his office, he says,
Are you
want
back?
a job? I said, I'm not a dental hygienist. He says, I'll tell you everything you know. So, that was a good time. That 3 months, and we just had fabulous time. And we stayed in a little apartment right behind
Yosemite.
So, what was your main job there?
Oh,
I was an
assistant.
Well,
management.
I was a unit manager for a while of Wawona.
Oh, Wawona. Okay, beautiful.
And then they did a reorganization, and it said, Jim, you got to come into the valley.
Okay.
So they moved me to the valley, and they said, you're going to take care of concessions, you're going to take care of public information,
all the news
you're
releases.
going to take mayor of El Portal.
Wow.
And whatever else that no one knows what to do with, you're going to do.
You're going to be the central dude.
Right.
Yeah, central.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was sort of I was indoors next, around the corner from the superintendent's office, and when things went haywire, Jim, you got to do this, you got to do that. Somebody comes in from a concession experience at a hotel or a lodge, and they want to complain to the superintendent of the park.
They complain to you.
I intercepted. As soon as I heard them coming in, I said, and I had an understanding with the concession guy who put out the fires, and we
just bounce people back.
We just talk ourselves to death, make it all come the right way. And Curry Company would compliment, we'll comp this and comp that, and so we kind of left some happy campers.
That's good.
Well, and anytime there was a
when the horse barn burned down, and we lost something like 24 horses. I got a call, Jim. We've had this major fire in the park. You better come to the office
and be the spokesman for the.
Yep, and I took care of all the stuff. Or they'd have some foreigner coming in, and Jim, we need this, we need that, and so I'd take them here, take them there, and
wow.
And it was just really.
Did they have a skating rink at that point?
Yes.
The ice skating rink,
and the firefall was still going for 2 days, like Saturday and Wednesdays.
Wow.
Or the weekend, the weekend and Wednesdays.
It was when we were departmental. I mean, when we were ranger training.
Oh, that's right, ranger training.
And
that's right.
When we came back permanently, the fire thing was over.
The firefall was gone. Yeah.
No more.
The hotel that was up at Glacier Point had burned.
Oh, okay, that's
where all that activity had happened.
Oh, wow!
And it got so congested in the valley. People wanting to see that firefall.
It was an amazing.
That they just said we can't deal with it anymore. Plus, there were people that were complaining because we were burning the red fir, I think, bark. Some kind of a bark off some of the trees. Of course, these were trees that fell over and died, and you had to work pretty hard to get the bark off of them. But, there was an environmental interest, and
So
that was the end of it.
Glacier Point. I remember Nancy and I going up there. It was in January, and it was all snowed up. And,
Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, and it was like, oh man, it would slide your way down your car.
Yeah, they had one of the most beautiful hotels up there.
And I remember seeing something about that. There was a hotel here.
Lovely hotel. In fact, when we were there for ranger training, we went out in camp one time, and it was just, you could sit up there off their porch and look at Half Dome. It was beautiful.
Yosemite is special. I mean, we saw a coyote chase a deer down the road in the valley, and where I filmed it, it was cool. It was like, and then I was like, oh my gosh. Then they look at you, and I'm like, don't look at me, man. Don't eat both of them, because I know deer can do damage. It's like
we had a
coyotes.
mountain lion drop down in front of us when we were driving home at Cliff Dwellings one evening.
Oh, cool.
And it started loping in front of the car and just stayed. And we said, well, he's up to 25 miles an hour. He just stayed for the longest time.
And then he got tired and
finally went off.
the road.
That was really kind of a...
That's awesome. So Yosemite, then what was next?
Lava Beds National Monument.
Wow. So now you're going back up
north, way on the Oregon-California border.
So you're going right back to Crater Lake almost.
Almost.
Klamath Falls was our shopping town for Crater Lake. Klamath Falls was our shopping town for Lava Beds. So
now it's a big wine region, which is awesome. That whole area.
Well, at that time, of course, it's one of the largest potato growing areas. Our daughter was a potato festival queen.
That's another story.
This is like the most interesting park interview we've ever done.
A spud queen.
A spud queen. From
all I know how to do is...
She went from the cliff dwellings to being a spud queen.
Yeah. Go for it.
But from Lava Beds National Monument, which was a wonderful area.
But it was
had
isolated.
Real variety.
It was
Modoc
isolated.
history, the Modoc War history.
Oh yeah,
the caves themselves.
379 cave systems to go through.
Wow,
a great
the
place.
birds, the animals. We saw more wildlife at Lava Beds than we did at Yosemite.
Really?
Oh yeah.
It's because you don't have as many people, maybe.
And exactly.
We had deer. We had
pheasant and
antelope. We had.
I want to go.
Eagles and everything.
Wow. Well, the real threat was running into a deer. I mean, I think almost every park employee ran. I mean, deer, their deer were just crazy.
You'd be driving, a deer would come up alongside of the car. Don't get any closer, because if you do, you're going to get hit.
It's going to hurt.
One evening, the kids had offered to make cakes for a cake walk at school, and that was 30 miles away and too big down to get to. And when the ice was bad, it was really bad. But anyway, so we made these cakes, and Tina had made a smiley face and a frowny face, and Tony had those in the back, and he was in something for Halloween, and Tina was in the front with a big toupee. So we just take off. I said, Jim, are you going? He said, no, just take off. So I just get over the hill, and this doe comes out, and she just flex off the side, and I stop the car, and we all kind of go like this. Tina kind of hits the cake into the dash a little bit, and I turn back, and I said, Tony, you okay? He says, yeah. I said, where are the cakes? He says, oh, they're right here. He takes one and puts it here, and he takes the other one off and puts it
on his lap. Oh, my God.
They'd gone right to the back of the boom.
Oh, man. That's funny. Oh man, this is terrible. When we lived up in 29 Palms, we'd go through Joshua Tree all the time.
Yes.
And it was Easter, and we had taken a friend to dinner. This was terrible. And I've helped people on the side of the road. One car had gone totally off the road, and it was during another day, and helping them out. And there's no cell phone service, and it was like no ranger was even on duty, I think, at that time. But anyway, this night we were coming back from dinner. And you know the way bunnies are, man. They they jump in at you, and then they go back, and they come back. They do this threefold. Just when you think you're safe to go on. And I wasn't speeding or anything, driving, and here come the rabbits, and they're all from all sides. And then all of a sudden, kadunk, and our friend the Commodore just turns. He says, "It's Easter. You killed a bunny on Easter." I was like, I felt so bad, and I was like, I killed a bunny. I'm going to pull over and help you. He's like, no, you really didn't. That was a rock. You didn't go over it. Yeah, I did. I killed a bunny on Easter.
Well, that I didn't believe in Santa Claus, and I didn't believe in a lot of things, but we had gone back to Death Valley, and I was a little girl, and the folks said, to our old house, and there was a big jackrabbit and Mom said, the Easter Bunny came. And I thought for sure that jackrabbit was indeed the Easter Bunny.
Oh, I killed your jackrabbit.
So you were the one.
I was the murderer. You did it. I murdered it. Oh my gosh. Oh my
no
gosh.
wonder then suddenly I kind of lost interest.
I love jackrabbits, man. They're super cool, seeing how their veins are in the ears. And oh man. So Lava Lakes.
Yeah. Well, and the interesting thing is that we had a seasonal employee, she came every summer, and Chihuahua James was a Modoc Indian. Her father, when the Modocs were taken from, after the war happened, they were taken back to Oklahoma, Miami, Oklahoma of all places, and her father was one of the oldest living Modocs at the time. And so, and Chihuahua had met her husband at Crater Lake, and so it was kind of an interesting. Suddenly she was a beautiful woman. She had been Mrs. Missouri or something like that. And so she brought her father, and the young people, we really probably had the best time with the seasonals that were there every summer, because they did the interpretive talks in the campground, and Chihuahua brought her father, and they all went through all the Modoc history while they were down in Captain Jack's stronghold.
Oh, wow.
And then another good friend of ours has just started really building up the slide format for them to use for their talks, and they were just the best. A lot of them went permanently into the Park Service because of that experience. You know? So it was really Have
you ever been to Lava Beds?
Not yet.
But
we're going to go quarters of it's underground.
Well, that's but that's neat. I mean, that's what I like about Pinnacles too. It's a different experience. The first cave we went into was at Coronado National Memorial down in southeast Arizona, and it was a dead cave, and it was really sad because it was really human beings who made it a dead cave.
There's a one that goes for a long, long time, and it used to be the introduction to take the seasonals through this cave. There was a lot of rolling and crawling, and I mean it was like hours to get through it. If you've ever been in a cave and they turn out a light and it's so black, and say, I'm at the total mercy of my guide. I mean, I have no idea where I am. So the kids, it was cold outside, you go in the caves because it was 56 or I don't know, whatever. It was hot outside, you go in the cave because it was the same temperature. But we used to take them all the way through this one cave as their introduction into caving, and it was just an interesting part.
And a small world. Gail and I went from Crater Lake on a tour trip to Lava Beds to see what's going on.
He took me there on a date.
Wow, and then you end up...
Look at the
20...
those birds are just...
20...
Wow. They just...
Gail.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
20 years later,
we moved.
We returned to Lava Beds superintendent.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that's
I was a summer ranger to a superintendent.
And it's a full circle
that's
moment.
Right. He took me on a date to Lava Beds from Crater Lake.
It really kind of close.
But then did you go from Lava Beds to here, to Pinnacles? And then you were the superintendent in Pinnacles. That's beautiful. So you knew about caves. That's you knew about caves and birds.
These were funny caves at Pinnacles because
and
they were big boulders at Lava Beds.
Lisa Smith.
Lava.
She
dark in there.
Was our maintenance gal. And
my last name is Smith, right?
I remember that. I remember you said, at least that's what I knew, Smith. She was in charge of maintenance and all the horses, and she takes them up to work the trail. So she let me come along with her, and we packed them.
She's mule packing again.
So it was Pinnacles was a special park. It just and a lot of the climbers from Yosemite come and use it in the winter. And I said, if there were ever water going down through that, from the visitor center, you couldn't keep people away from that.
Well, I know that they really got packed over this year with the Centennial, now being the 59th park. I mean, the park system, depending on the parks that we look at, like Gila Cliff Dwellings, won't be overrun like Yosemite gets overrun, Pinnacles. So there's a balance. Us as visitors and travelers, we need to look at going more midweek and off-season, and it's like Yosemite in winter is a magical experience.
October?
It's awesome.
October anywhere in the fall. I mean, I don't know, that Indian summertime is just
it's perfect.
the best time.
It is. So I think people have to look at that. In closing, you've got the Anza Trail here too that you've created. That's part of the Juan Bautista de Anza National Historic Trail. And now you go downtown in the Mission. We're going to be doing that today. But you created a trail where people can actually walk this trail.
Yeah. That's right.
Well, what the trail is really the old, an old road.
Stagecoach Road, yeah.
It was the old Stagecoach Road. But it was getting a kind of a problem with gangbangers and everybody else going up there.
Party time.
Private time, and the ranchers were
concerned,
Yeah, they were worried about what was going on, technically on their property. Well, a city, a county
supervisor,
Place.
Richard Place.
Richard Place was a county supervisor. He came up with the idea, why don't we recognize the Anza expedition on this old piece of road that we kind of think he came through here, and maybe that will settle the problem that the ranchers were having with the hippies and all that stuff that were using the trail for drugs and beer and all that.
Yeah, because that's how you get wildfires and stuff too.
So they did it. They got it signed off as part of the National Historic Trail, signed by Clinton. And they were able to, convince the ranchers that you could put your wire up and we'll put the two gates up, and there won't be any more of this nonsense and shooting and drinking and all that sort of stuff up on what is the old trail. And plus, we've recognized the trail and the expedition that they did to get to San Francisco. So I think it's worked out
because you got a lot of hikers up there, and that's a haul.
And as Gayle mentioned, Alan was able to pinpoint at least one spot to say, "Hey, we've got documentation that they went from here to."
They crossed over that trail.
In so many places, the trail is under concrete or buildings. And for the park, they said it's one of the very few areas that you could really realize how somebody coming over the hill, the families coming down off the hill into a little village, although San Juan wasn't here at the time. It was just or the Mission. But it was that same, it is all by itself and is pretty much a wilderness as it could have been.
So you can get an idea of what it is.
It has become a very positive trail for people walking their dogs in the morning and
for visitors coming.
And Jim just has some volunteers that sort of are the eyes.
There are 5 of us that volunteer to pick up the trash and whatever.
If something happens, they'll give them a call.
So you're still the middleman.
Yeah.
Hey, there's a cow. There's a cow patty on the left-hand side.
I got a telephone call a couple of days ago. Big cows with huge horns had gotten on the road, the trail.
I'm staring people down.
Do something.
This is part of your walking experience.
Out there with a red
tape.
Like this.
I said, Joe, just go down to the ranch house at the north gate and talk to the lady that you've got some stray
cattle. Around
2 mile marker.
Yeah.
And they've got 2 boys there that love to
round them up,
ride their horses, and move the cattle.
Yeah, they were always there when we walked. Yeah, when we first opened that trail, we'd go up and we'd be the only ones up there because nobody knew about it. And the cows would always be there.
The Anza Trail's a 1,500 mile expedition.
Yeah, right.
It was incredible. When you think of trail, you and I think of a trail about that wide, and you can hike and everything.
Well,
the Anza Trail was spread out all over, because
the
water was good
house,
here.
Your house?
No, not yet.
Because they have a diorama, and that's when it hit us. because it shows, just this wide width of how the people moved across.
Really?
Because you think of just going down,
then you had a couple of hundred for cattle, a couple of hundred for horses. They were spread out all over.
It was, in fact, they said they had a very nice video of the history of Anza. And they said, would you listen, watch, and what do you think about it? And I said, well, the only thing I can say is those horses are on pavement, and they're in the visual, they're on dirt. You wouldn't sound like they're on pavement. Yeah. That was my only critique. But that diorama really pulled us into
how
big it was.
Wow! I mean, they were moving
little characters and horses and cattle and everything. But it's spread out like. Mm-hmm.
Well, they're just going at their own pace.
But it's interesting, being from southern Arizona and going to Tumacacri and going to like Nogales, where they crossed over from Mexico, and then you see now they're developing trails out there. Mm-hmm. And I know people have ridden it. Have actually done the horse ride from Mexico all the way to San Francisco, which is that's so cool. But back then you do spread out and you do go at the pace you need.
Didn't he lose his life in
the what?
Where did Anza lose his life?
In Spain, I think. No, he wasn't in this country.
Who?
Anza. Well, where did he die?
Where did he die?
He died buried in Arizona state line.
Yeah, I think he was
and
in Arizona.
There's a little town below that in Old Mexico, and that's where he's buried.
I'm going to go find. I'm going to go find him. Dude, I have a thing about this trail. I think the expedition is fascinating, especially it being part of when America was being founded here in 1776. That's right. So, well, thank you both for chatting.
No, thank you. Well, the only thing you did miss out.
Thanks for joining us here on Big Blend Radio's Parks and Travel podcast. Visit nationalparktraveling.com to plan your next park adventure and to see our Parks and Travel digital magazine. You can keep up with our shows at bigblendradio.com.